All right. According to our streaming platform, we are live. So give it a couple of seconds to catch up. But while I do that, I'll introduce myself. For those of you who don't know, I'm bdub, co-founder of FBIbasketball.com. And we're here to talk about the FBI Locked On Fantasy Basketball World Cup for 2024. We're going to be going over a few different things today. Briefly at the beginning, just going to do a quick recap of the structure. Then I'm going to give we're going to give a few tips and tricks just about how to make your World Cup drafting experience a bit smoother than it might be. And then after that, we're going to get straight into a mock draft. So we've got 12 people in the draft. There's myself. There's Karan Talwar, our FBI analyst. And then we've got 10 FBI community members who participate in the draft. We've set the draft up exactly the same way that the World Cup Phase 1 is set up. So 11 matchups and then the 3 weeks of playoffs. That will mean that we potentially draft a little bit differently based on getting good schedules for the playoffs. And with 8 teams out of every 12 going through the playoffs, we'll go through the structure in a minute to explain that in a bit more detail. But that could be important. So I'm guessing that there will be a few tips and insights during this live stream that may help all of you out there in the World Cup. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Karan. How you doing, mate?
All good. Excited to be here.
Absolutely awesome. Now, for those of you who don't know, Karan is one of the few people that has won a tournament of this size. So the World Cup is actually, I believe we're in our 4th or 5th year, maybe 4th. And in recent years, we've had the introduction of the Locked On Fantasy Bowl as well, which Karan won the points instance of that last year. Karan, did you find that a piece of cake, or was it a difficult thing for you to manage? And if so, why?
Yeah, it was an experience playing a league of that size, with so many, like the Battle Royale round as well, which comes in, and then you can't make any wire moves at the time because there's only 12 teams. I think the key takeaway for me was just from the beginning, just know your league rules, because that's important. Just know the structure of the tournament you're playing. And then when you walk in, obviously with your wire moves, etc., there's a large element of luck with that as well, which you gotta take into consideration. In terms of the final round, for me in the points division, it literally came down to the last game which Orlando versus LA, and I had Austin Reeves, and this is the game he went crazy, and he took me over the top by, I think the total points difference was like 19 points over the person who finished second in the points league. So it's fun. It's fun, but I think the key focus in the beginning should be know your rules and try to win your own division. Like that's what you should care about at the beginning, and then you see what happens later on.
So what you're saying is you were lucky.
A lot of it, I guess.
No, just a little joke. You literally cannot win a tournament like that just based on pure luck. That is not something that happens. All right. Well, before we get into the mock draft, which we're aiming to start in around 5 to 10 minutes, just a heads up to the guys waiting in the draft room. Probably going to pause the clock for the first 5 minutes while we just go through a couple of things here, hopefully some of which you all find handy. What I'm going to do here is just bring up the structure of the World Cup. Now, I understand that this screen is not huge and it might be a little bit difficult to see. So I'm just going to talk through it as best I can. All right, so first column down the left-hand side, yellow column, basically that's divisions 1 to 48, right? So there's 48 divisions in the World Cup, each one named after a different place around the world. No rhyme or reason to the naming of those places, except that they're all places that I have been to and loved, or there's a few mixed in there that I'd really like to go to. But the majority of them are places that I have been to and love. But I did try and get a good mix of places from around the world with a few interesting names in there for anyone that's interested. So 48 divisions, and then in each division, there's 12 teams. The reason that we've done it that way is because we want to keep this as standard as possible. So we want to have every single draft to have 12 teams, just like you would in a normal league. And that actually persists all the way through the competition. So we've got our 48 divisions, 12 teams per division. You're placed into one of those divisions, and from there, you are going to play against every other team in your division. So that's 11 other teams. You're going to play against them once each. So that will be the first 11 weeks of the season. And importantly, that is 24th of October through until, I believe, the 8th of January. I might be a day off there. Might be the 7th of January. But yeah, the 24th of October through to the 8th of January, that is the first portion of the World Cup, the first portion of the first phase. So you play every team once, so everything's totally balanced and fair. And all the teams that you play are inside your division. Now, I know that in the West and in the North, it's currently set up showing you playing teams from other divisions. Do not worry, I will change that setting as soon as the drafts are finished. Can't actually change it while the drafts are in progress. So as soon as the drafts are finished before the first game of the season, that'll be changed. You play every team in your division once. So once you've done that, you're going to have a win-loss record. This is based on 1 point per category. So when I beat Karan 8-1, I'm going to get 8 points. Karan's going to get 1 point. That's kind of how it works. And then when Karan beats one of you 8-1, he gets 8 points and you get 1 point. And at the end of those 11 matchups, whoever has the highest amount of points, the best win-loss record, they're going to be at the top of the table all the way down to the bottom. And what's going to happen from there is we go into the Phase 1 playoffs. Only the top 8 teams from each division will go into the Phase 1 playoffs. So the bottom 4 teams will be eliminated. And from there, first will play 8th, second will play 7th, third will play 6th, and fourth will play 5th. That'll be a knockout week. That'll leave us with 4 teams. Those 4 teams will play each other in the second week of the playoffs, leaving us with 2 teams. They will play each other in the last week of the Phase 1 playoffs, which is the week, I believe, 22nd to the 28th of January. That will determine the division champions. So the division champion from each division will get $100. And the division runner-up, they will be knocked out, just like everybody else that didn't make it through Phase 1, but the runner-up will get $25. From there, we will be left with 48 managers, 1 manager from each division, and that's when we will embark on Phase 2. So Phase 2 kicks off on the 29th of January, and the first week of Phase 2 is a redraft. So all the players on your old team will be gone. You will actually join a new instance of the league, and that will be split into 4 divisions, 1 per conference, North, East, South, and West. So you will then you'll basically be going into a knockout phase, Phase 2, with the other division winners from your conference. So again, it's a 12-team draft, 12 managers from your division going through to Phase 2. And that draft will last a week. So typically the slow draft.
Mate, sorry, I think may want to pause the draft.
Oh, of course I do. Yeah. Bear with me a moment. We've got Emma who has stop. All right, cool. We will pause the draft and I will just reverse the clock. God, I have my flow on there. But let me just get straight back into it. All right. So where was I? Thanks for that, Karan. That's right. Phase 2, 12 division winners from each conference go through to Phase 2, do another redraft. Those drafts, the slow drafts that we do to accommodate people from all around the world, they take 7 to 10 days usually. but we've only allowed 7 days. So it only takes up one period for the phase 2 draft. So the picks will have to be a little bit quicker. But basically, as it happened last year, the people that managed to win the division tend to be pretty switched on, and they also tend to pick pretty quickly. So we had no issue with that whatsoever last year. So how does it work from there? You've got 12 teams in your conference. It is a knockout from there. So week 1 of phase 2, the 12th seed plays the first seed, the 11th seed plays the second seed, and so on. How does the seeding work? The seeding is literally taken from the win-loss record from phase 1. So what we do is we basically look at all the teams that qualified. We look at for phase 2, that is, we look at their win-loss record, and then you get seeded within your division. So the team that was the strongest in phase 1 will play the team that was the weakest in phase 1. And that's, of course, just the division winners. So we actually have 2 rounds of knockouts in phase 2. First round, 12 teams play, it becomes 6 teams. The second round, 6 teams play, it becomes 3 teams. And that is actually the end of phase 2, because what you are left with is 4 conferences with 3 teams each, which you guessed it, is 12 teams. And those 12 teams will be proceeding to the third phase, where we will do another redraft, and they will also collect an additional $60 each in prize money. So that brings us to phase 3, where, as I said, there will be 12 teams, 3 from each conference. Again, they will be seeded based on their win-loss record, this time from their win-loss record in phase 2. That one will be a lot closer. I will use the phase 1 records for tiebreakers. So from there, what we're going to have is we've got a bit of an unbalanced amount of teams. You can't get down to one winner with 12 teams. That's why we usually have 8 teams moving through into playoffs. So what's going to happen there is the top 4 seeds will skip round 1 and they will go straight into round 2, which will leave the bottom 8 seeds to duke it out in round 1 of phase 3. So those 8 teams become 4, and they will play the 4 teams that proceeded into the second week of phase 3. So you basically got 8 teams, then it becomes 4 teams, and then it becomes 2 teams. So if you make it through all the way through to the final, you're guaranteed a big payday. The champion of the World Cup is going to receive $3,200. They also get inducted into the FBI Hall of Fame. They also get to get an automatic entry into the World Cup next year. And that actually goes for all the division winners. All the division winners will get invited to the World Cup the following year. And they also actually get invited to something that we basically did for the first time last year, which is the Champions League, which is essentially all the division winners in a league of their own that runs the whole season. Totally optional if you want to play. So far, all the division winners have played in that last year, and that's a really high level fantasy game. But that is an aside. Let's put that to one side. That is the roster. Sorry, the schedule. That probably took a little bit longer explaining that than I intended. But just a couple more important notes. And sorry, Karan, I've been talking a lot here, mate. But first phase is 14 weeks. 11 weeks of gameplay, 3 weeks of playoffs. Then we have a week off for redrafting. Then we got a 1 week matchup for the first matchup of phase 2. Then the second matchup of phase 2 is actually 2 weeks because we've got the All-Star break in the middle. Then we take a week off to do the next redraft. And then we've got 4 weeks of playoffs in phase 3, which brings us all the way through to April. Typically speaking, we like to end these leagues a week earlier than this one is ending. But due to schedule restraints, it will need to end on the 1st of April, which is sort of all right because the league finishes a little bit later this year, around the 15th of April. So we still cut out those 2 weeks of bullshit games at the end. All right, Karan. Now that I've sort of been speaking nonstop for so long, I was wondering if you could throw out a few of your thoughts on the structure, and potentially the best way to set yourself up for success.
Yeah, I think the key part is knowing the league rules. First of all, this is really important, right? Because I think a lot of us are probably still not the clearest in the rules. So yesterday and today we've clarified this. So this would be good for everyone to jump into to their leagues and their divisions. The key part for me would be looking at the schedule, right? For phase one, it's until Jan 28th. So we want to make decisions in our drafting, which we'll go through soon, which reflect Jan 28th as the last day. So for example, a rookie who we think would pop off in, let's say, March, right, in terms of value and in terms of minutes, they may not be as valuable in this phase of drafting, because if by Jan they may not be providing you value, and that's what you need to look at. And we'll obviously go through a lot more as a draft goes on, but yeah, just knowing the schedule is the biggest one for me.
Or yeah, I think you're spot on with that, and we'll probably go into that a little bit more detail as we're actually doing the mock draft that is coming up. So essentially, after I give a couple of tips on the best way to set up your fan tracks for the best experience, probably about 3 to 5 minutes worth of tips, we're going to get straight into the mock, and the poor guys waiting in there can start drafting alongside us. So I'm just going to bring up on the screen here my view of fan tracks, which should appear there right now. Boom, beautiful. Alrighty, so few things I wanted to just quickly go through. First of all is turning on your notifications. So this is really going to save some people from missing their pick, because as we know, life does get in the way sometimes and we can forget. What we're going to show you here is a way to put your notifications on and make sure you get a push when it's your time to pick. So where are we here? Expand all? No. All right. Well, it doesn't give me the option in here to be able to do that. Maybe that's because the draft started. So what I'll quickly do is I'll just flick over to the World Cup. All right. So here we go. What you want to do is you want to go to team, then go to notifications and click on that. You're going to get this screen come up. Last night when I did the randomizations, I told you guys to turn on draft pick made and your turn to draft. I've realized that in this particular format, that's not good, because you end up getting notified of every pick made across all the divisions. So I keep that one off for this, but you can put it on if you are interested. But what you want to do is you want your turn to draft. You want to add push and email. So you get pinged on your phone and you get an email when it's your turn to draft. That's the most important one. And I'd also suggest putting on deck to draft, because that can just give you possibly like an extra little bit of time to maybe think about who you're going to pick, jump into the room, because it's going to ping you one pick before your draft. And that way we can keep the drafts moving. So turn those on for push and email. So that is the first thing. Second thing is I've noticed some people are unfamiliar with fan tracks, don't know how to change their team name. That one's pretty straightforward. You go to team, you go to settings, right? And then you've got this screen here. And then from there, you can change your team name and your team abbreviation. So it's as simple as that. Just change the name with the little pencil and then press save. All right, now we're going to jump back to the draft room here. And this is probably the most important thing for people to be aware of, all right? And that is setting a queue. So I am pick 6 in this mock draft. And so I'm not really anticipating having Jokic, Embiid or Doncic on the board. And so what I've done here is I've got Halliburton. I've got Karan's going to see all my picks here and what I want to do, but that's fine. I've got Halliburton, I've got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I've got Tatum lined up. That is the order that I want those guys in. But how do I set the queue? basically you just click these little buttons, the little plus button, not this one over here. That's how you draft people, but you click the little plus button like so, and that's going to set your queue. Why is that important? Because if your time runs out, you want the system to take the player from your queue. You don't want them to just take the player from the main window over here, because actually the way it sorts it is by score. That's the default. And once you're a few picks in, you're going to have like a James Harden, or even worse, a CJ McCollum or a Nikola Vucevic sort of floating up around the top. And if your timer runs out, that's going to be what the system selects for you automatically, unless you follow the instructions that we're giving you here, which is obviously to set a queue. So important that you've got a queue going at all times. And obviously it's also a good way just to sort of, sort through the myriad of options that you've got here, making sure that you or just sort of filtering out and just placing the guys that you actually want in your queue over here. It can actually save you some time, so you don't have to keep scrolling through the infinite list over and over and over again. So that's the first part of setting a queue. All right. But then the next thing I want to show you is just the draft room option. So you click this little 3 dots up at the top here. You won't see this commissioner screen, but you will see this general screen. What you want to do is, first thing you want to do is select auto draft from queue only. So even if you've got a queue, it's not necessarily going to take it from the queue if you don't have this auto draft from queue only selected. So make sure that is on. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that something else that you can do is, let's say that it's a couple of picks away from you and you want to go to sleep. You know as well as I do, Murphy's Law, as soon as you hit the hay, close your eyes and go to sleep, those picks are going to come in and then you'll be on the clock and you'll be sleeping. So the way that you can keep the draft room moving is by putting yourself on auto draft. And what auto draft is going to do is it's going to, like, assuming that you have your auto draft from queue only selected, it's just going to take automatically whoever you've got at the top of the queue. So I might be on auto draft when it's Karan's pick here. And let's say that Halliburton, Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tatum are all on the board. That's the order I want them in. It doesn't matter who Karan takes, who the next person takes. It's going to take whoever's at the top of my queue automatically. And the way that I turn that on is with this button here. And I only ever set it to auto pick 1. If you're on the turn, maybe you might do it for 2. So I've turned on auto pick, and then you'll see here that I am literally on auto pick, and it's signified by the green symbol up here where your name is. All right. So that's how you know you've got auto pick turned on. I don't want auto pick on for this mock draft. So I am going to turn it off, but it's important that you know how to turn on auto pick, because it will save you a lot of anxiety as you do these drafts, and not just in this draft, in other ones as well. So last thing I want to show you guys is a little trick that I learned, and assuming I can find it here. It's in general. Oh, it doesn't have it in this one. Let me just jump back into the World Cup draft room again. Probably going to show off who's in my queue here. Yes, I am. All right, so you go into general, and you see here it says current division. I'm in a Tosha division, but let's say I want to go check in on what's going on in any of the other divisions in my conference. I can click that button and I can go select, say, Amsterdam. I click that and it's going to show me what's going on in the Amsterdam draft. So that's just a little trick there for you. Karan, do you have anything else to add to that, or do you think I covered it off sufficiently?
Yeah, I think it's as well covered. I think the queue part is very important, just in terms of draft etiquette as well. Supposing you're picking 2 picks later, and you know that there's 3 guys you have top of mind, and you're going to sleep, just put those 3 guys in the order you want, and then just put it on auto pick, so that it doesn't then take those 6 hours away when you wake up, and then we're sort of slowing the draft down. I think setting queues in the most extreme form, you can set a queue of like 50, 60 people if you have projections of yours in your own mind, so that you just have that at all times. But that's the most extreme one. You could obviously do it closer to your picks as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That is totally correct. And yeah, I think for me, the main thing there is that no. Someone in the I'm just read one of these comments. Only I can view the other draft rooms as an admin. We can't do that. I believe you can. I believe that you can. But anyways, we've got the wonderful Spazzy McGee in the Discord, who collates the different draft picks from the different divisions, and we tend to post them in the Discord after every round or so. So an alternative to scrolling through them one by one is join our Discord. It's foolish if you're not in there already. Join our Discord and you'll get all sorts of little tidbits like that throughout the World Cup process that you won't get if you're just in Fantrax. So without further ado, let's get on with the mock draft. Sorry to all the guys in the draft room. We've kept you waiting. We're going to get started now. So Emma is on the clock. Emma definitely been around in FBI for a number of years. Recognize her handles, and glad to see her in here picking number one. I wonder who she's going to take. And I wonder if she even knows that we're on the clock. She does, and she's taken Nikola Jokic. Any surprises there, Karan?
No, not at all. In every league across, she should be going number one.
And you're coming up here at number 4 as Joel Embiid goes at number 2. Who are you anticipating taking with your pick number 4 here, mate?
I'm looking at Halliburton or potentially Luka, but right now Halliburton. Yeah, because I think, Halliburton or Luka, one of them, and then Shea right after and Tatum right after in terms of the queue. But
yeah, and why have you got Halliburton ahead of, let's say, Shea or Tatum?
they're very close, right? Like Halliburton, Shea, like in terms of what you think they'll do. I just think that getting that as my pick comes, I'm going to take Halliburton and talk through it. I think just getting that cushion of assists in the beginning, right? We all know how difficult assists are to find. Getting that, and then potentially later on trying to get my scoring up, because Halliburton in the first round is probably the lowest scorer. He's projected to be one of the lowest scorers. So that's how I'm viewing this. If you go Shea, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's a razor thin margin for me.
Yeah, well, you're totally right there. They both sort of come with their pros and cons. Shea is a lot more balanced across the board than many of the other options inside the first round, except perhaps Jokic, who's just a beast, and probably the guy who I've taken after him, Jason Tatum. What that means to me is you're pushing, like if you're planning to punt, you take a Shea or a Jason Tatum, it's more difficult to determine in round 1 which way you should go with the punt. Whereas if you take a Halliburton, you've got a couple of clear options on the table. For instance, you could punt points because he's not sort of a beast when it comes to points. Whereas if you've got a Doncic or a Giannis going at 7, Doncic going at 3 for those listening, you've got a much more sort of straightforward punt right under your nose, typically free throws in those two scenarios. We've got Ball going at 8. Any thoughts on Ball at 8? And would you take him ahead of the 3 vets that went in succession straight afterwards, Curry, Durant, and Dame Lillard?
Yeah, for those of us who were listening to mine and Noah's podcast a couple of days back on the Central Division, I did say, yes, I would take LaMelo over Steph and Durant and Lillard. Maybe not Giannis, because I feel Giannis's defensive stats there's a chance that they come back this year, just with the offensive pressure more on Dame now, and he can rely on his defense again to win games. So maybe not Giannis, but I think over Steph and Durant for sure. It's close, but I would lean LaMelo at this point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. Now, for anyone that's watching along on the live stream, you'll see that I flicked over to Basketball Monster. Not everybody is aware of what you can do as a premium Basketball Monster subscriber. But this is one of the very neat things that you can do, and that is open up their draft tracker. And as you can see here, it's basically ranking in real time the different players in the draft room. So as I flick back, the four guys that I had at the top of my queue have all gone back to back to back. Booker, Edwards, Mitchell, and Trae Young, which is a bit irritating for me. But I love Basketball Monster because I can sort of, it really does help you structure your teams much more effectively. I can see here that Tatum's sort of low on turnovers, so I'm going to turn on my turnover punt straight away, which I do for every draft. Regardless, I always draft turnovers. But as you can see with Tatum, he's sort of quite good across the board, so no real punt presents itself immediately. Whereas if you see with Karan, we've got he's like quite low on points compared to the rest of the field, and quite low on rebounds. So there's two opportunities right there. Okay, so now I'm on the clock. I have to determine who I'm going to go for here. I don't particularly like going for the older guys in this second round. I feel like there's too much downside risk. I'm just going to quickly put Jaren Jackson Jr. in my queue just in case I am unable to make a decision in time. And I think that is what I'm going to have to go for. Triple J has got decent free throws for a big man, but it's really those blocks that I'm going to lock up early on. I might actually set this up so that, okay, I've taken Triple J there. The other guys that I was considering, but not too ferociously, were basically all these vets. Well, not all these vets, but some of these vets, like a Kyrie Irving, potentially, or others. But I do believe Kyrie did go before me. So I think JJJ was the right pick there for me. What do you reckon as you come into your pick here, Karan?
Yeah, no worries with JJJ at that point. When he was going in the first round, that's when I was like, okay, that's potentially too high. For me right now, you're right. It's a decision point, right? Like if I want to completely not punt points, I need to get a scorer at the moment. And this is a very tricky part of the draft. You would have like those Kawhis and Paul Georges and LeBrons of the world at the moment, and that's where I'm leaning towards as well. I mean, I could look at a Desmond Bain or someone around that as well, but I just feel I need to take LeBron right now, even though I know with the potential of injuries at his advanced stage, it is there. But I'll try and make it up with a little bit more sort of safer guys later on in the draft.
All right. Now, my Basketball Monster is showing that I've got 0 playoff games, which says to me that I haven't imported the settings properly. So this might be a little bit of a sort of a tutorial on how to set up Basketball Monster. You can see I've got a lot of leagues there. What are we doing?
Yeah, here? I think the playoff settings, the start week and end week, we got to enter that manually. So right at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, start week.
There we go. So that's interesting that you bring that up, right? I had Mikal Bridges that I was considering as well. But sometimes if playoff schedule can be a tiebreaker. So what I noticed was that Bridges has a 1-game week in our playoffs, right? So that is something, and that's the first week itself, right? The first week, Brooklyn has 1 game. And that to me was a tiebreaker that made me, okay, now I could take someone else because their schedule is slightly better. But I would not use a playoff schedule as the predominant decision maker. It should be a tiebreaker or something when 2 guys are close and you're not able to decide.
Yeah, well, frankly, I reckon that's probably the tip of the podcast so far. Brooklyn teams having a 1-game week in the playoffs. I actually genuinely think in this format, I would I will be taking that into account, absolutely, and avoiding Brooklyn players because having a 1 week, particularly at the top of the draft, because having a 1 week game from one of your top 2 guys in the playoffs, that's a recipe for failure from my point of view. Now, just rolling through these subsequent picks, Jimmy Harden going at pick 20, and then you follow that up with LBJ at pick 21. So let's talk about it. First of all, you seem to be a big fan of Harden of James, LeBron James in the second round here. Whereas in all the FBI data that I've accumulated through our draft only leagues, he's going sort of late third round. So I reckon you could have got him with your third pick here. What was your rationale for taking him in the second round?
For this draft, as I come up on my pick and my queue is getting wiped, I did want Towns and Butler. Bridges is gone now. So my rationale was the points, like the points boost he gives. I mean, that's something which twisted it or put it in his favor at the moment. But yeah, I feel like maybe I could have got him on the way back as well. But right now, as I think through this, I think I gotta take. I know you're not going to potentially like this, but I need to do it. I'm gonna take your...
Taking my guy. I know who you've taken. I can't see the screen, but I'm betting you took Desmond Bane, did you?
If you bet that, you would have made some cash.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. And that he would have been pretty damn high on my list there. Yeah, so am I on the clock yet? No, not quite. Desi Bane, love that pick there. Pick 28, no less. He is, Josh Lloyd's got him about 32. I did a podcast. Oh, motherfucker, big girls don't. Kawhi. There's my 2 top of my queue picks just gone in quick succession there. All right, I'm going to do my pick and then I'll come back to my analysis. But let's just, I'll talk you through what I'm doing. I'm looking like punt assists, or I've got to get a big assists guy here. All right, so don't love these guys at the top of the board. Too early to take Jordan Poole. I've got 18 seconds left. Don't really want to take Kawhi here. Don't love the options that I've got. It's going to have to be Garland, I think. Okay. Auto-drafted Garland anyway. So there you go. Get my assists up. Was thinking of a punt assist build. That probably would have been smart for me to do there. Kawhi goes next. So maybe it wasn't too early to take him. Kawhi. So I was looking at a punt assist build there because my assists are sort of lagging behind the other categories for me there. So punt assists would have been really interesting. But then when I plug in a punt assists build into Basketball Monster, the guys at the top of the queue were the likes of Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Kristaps Porzingis, all guys that I'm not really comfortable taking in the third round. So I had to make a call and decide to pivot away from that train of thought of punting assists, and which meant that I really needed to get some assists onto my team in a hurry. And Garland was right up the top there, giving me a good amount of assists per game. So that's where I went, and I'm glad that that's how my auto draft went, because I did not have a queue. So that means for me that my build is going to be sort of more on the balanced side, which I actually don't mind in a really competitive league. It's sort of like if you're, that's really dropped me down the ranks there. I don't really mind going for a competitive build, a balanced build in these competitive drafts. And the reason is that when you're drafting with inexperienced players, you can really kill them with a good punt. Absolutely dominate them. But then on the flip side of that, when everybody else is punting, you can actually go the other direction and have a balanced build, and that can actually give you quite a bit of success as well. Have you had any experience, or do you have any thoughts on that sort of approach?
Absolutely right. I know like a lot of us in this space lean into punt builds, right? I think punt assist this year is good. Punt steals, I've seen some good teams come out of that as well. But for me as well, my style is just it's about your own drafting style as well, right? I do like a balanced team as an approach, because then, as you said, that unless you're really, really good in 5 or 6 categories, pulling off a punt is very hard in competitive leagues, right? It's easier in auction leagues, but we're not doing auction leagues at the moment. We're doing snake drafts. So for me, I would look at balanced teams as much as I can, with the potential like a hard punt or maybe like a turnovers or something like that. Then you're all right, and then it gives you a lot more options on the wire as well, because then if you're at average level on points, but and you need some points coming in a week, you can just stream that in. Another week, because your team is average in rebounds as well, you may need a little bit more rebounds. You stream that in. Gives you a lot more options as well in that sense. So I'm all for balanced builds as going forward.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I can see a lot of benefit in that approach. Now let's just take a look at some of these other teams, because these guys are drafting pretty damn well, I think. So what's a couple of teams that stand out for me? All right, let's take a look at Booker 23. He just took his 4th pick, Aiton. So that's the highest I've seen Aiton go all season at 39. I was actually routinely getting him in the 60s up until obviously today. I was obviously with the trade to Portland expecting him to go earlier in this draft, but I did kind of think I'd be able to get him in with this 4th pick here. And I thought potentially he might even slide to the 5th pick, but that has not happened. So I like that pick from Booker. I like his first pick with KD there. He's followed up with Mitchell. Nice high-scoring team, quite balanced. Bit of a risk with Paul George. I don't know how much I love that with KD. I just don't know how much I love Paul George in general, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's an interesting build there. Anything on the board there that you want to sort of run through while Jordan Poole goes off the board at my end?
Well, I was looking at Jordan Poole in this round, so tropics if you're watching. Thank you.
Like a field goal for me.
I think Emma's team as well. I think she's. I mean, it's early, but she's potentially looking at a decent balanced build outside of maybe points, because Jokic is, again, he's a decent scorer, but he's not one of the highest scorers in the round one. And then you sort of pair that with Van Fleet and Towns. The scoring is something which she may struggle to find later on. So, but I do like the rest of it. And punt points is a decent build as well, that you can build around this year. Because a lot of the guys who go in punt points builds, like, people aren't really looking at them. For example, like Draymond really goes high in that build, and no one's like really looking into coming into a draft and saying, I'm going to draft Draymond. I mean, no, he has that injury as well at the moment, evidently. But yeah, that's where you can get a lot of value in those picks in a punt points situation.
All right. Well, I just autoed De'Aaron Fox, who I didn't want. There's a lesson for everybody about setting a queue. I did want Jamal Murray, and I did, because this is a mock draft, take the liberty of undoing that pick and adding Murray to my team. So I've taken Murray with my 4th pick. So how's that for an interesting change in direction? After my first 2 picks, I thought I was going to do a punt assist build. I was sort of corralled into taking Garland with my 3rd pick, and I've since sort of backed that up with another assist guy, Jamal Murray, who I think is going to have a very nice season for Denver. They didn't really do much with their off season in terms of adding extra talent, so they're going to have to roll through the season with the talent that they already have on their roster. And without Bruce Brown. And I think Jamal Murray, he sort of got injured the season before last and didn't really look like peak Jamal Murray until the playoffs last year, where he absolutely cooked. I think he's going to take that through into the regular season. He's have a completely healthy off season and hit the ground running come October. Who did you take with your next pick and why, mate?
I took Zach LaVine. I think there's about 5 to 6 spots of value where I got him. I think at 45, I think he can be a top 36, 38 player. In terms of in this setting, I did have Mobley in mind as well. I did have Jamal Murray in my queue as well. I absolutely agree. I think it could be a borderline all-star season for him, just given the lack of depth on that team. Him and the rest of the guys, they really need to step up. And you could potentially, there's a few other guys which have not been drafted yet, like that may see an increase in their usage and points as well. So yeah, I love that pick. I do also like Mobley that like Bear just took. He was in my queue as well. I think that's a good spot for him. I like Zion as well. I feel like at that stage at like 47, 48, where big girls on Kawhi got him, that's good. He could return that value, especially if they're looking at a right punt build. So yeah, a flurry of good picks. This draft room does tend to have people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's sort of annoying because people keep taking the guys that you want to draft. Mobley there at pick 46 is really great value, I think. And then Foxy at 47, I think is also good. A lot of blocks and steals coming off the board at the moment. 2 places that I really need to lift my game. I realize that I'm sort of live streaming my queue here, so could lead to curveballs coming my way. Don't know whether I'm going to be able to leave this guy that I'm pretty interested in, Jalen Williams, until the next round. He might not last that long. I really need some steals, and he's going to provide me with elite steals. Basketball Monster's got him fairly down the board here. I tend to be a bit more bullish on him than that. Sort of need a big man too that's not going to kill my field goal percentage. I'm on the clock here. I can see someone's punting free throw percentage over there. I can see. All right. So what have I got? Claxton all the way up the top here. Got my turnover punt on. He would really strengthen my boards. Definitely do need someone who's going to give me steals. I'm not going to take Chris Paul or Ben Simmons or Marcus Smart. I think it is going to be Jalen Williams here, and it is going to completely cook me. The other guy that I'm pretty interested in is Josh Giddey. All right. So, oh, no. All right, pause. Sorry, guys. Karan, if you get caught up talking and you need me to pause, just sing out because it is difficult to do it properly while you're talking and
absolutely.
So Jalen Williams there for me, and then Whale 529. You can take Giddey if you want. He did. All right. Well, Whale is going to be happy with that. And let's see if Tropics takes
Claxton.
Claxton and just completes the
and
circle.
that is I mean, if Tropics is again listening after they took Poole away from us, Claxton at 56, I feel like that's probably the latest I've seen him go in all the draft onlys we've done and all the mocks we've done. He's usually going easily. He does. He heard me. He's easily going in the top 45 that I've seen, at least. I know his ADP says 50, but I feel like in more competitive leagues he's going earlier. So I consider him in my pick as well. With Jalen Williams, look, I mean, he is a strong, he is a winning player, and they need him to be there in that team. And he's one of the better defenders as well. He's going to play minutes. With Chet there, there's a few considerations you can think of, right? With Chet being there, does he gamble more for steals now because he knows he has that backline of support waiting to help? Or does he take a little bit more of a balanced approach now that, okay, now there is Chet, so now we go in and we be a little bit more balanced in our defense? So that's something to watch in the preseason, is the schemes that the coach runs there.
Yeah, absolutely. I am really lacking behind on rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage in my quote unquote balanced build. Field goal percentage. My free throws are pretty good. So I feel like I'm going to have to take a center coming up here. And it's going to have to be one that's got decent blocks. Definitely not going to be a Brook Lopez. It's not going to be.
You're before me. Who are you thinking about?
I was thinking about Sengun, but I'm guessing he's gone. Yes, he is, because he's disappeared from my tracker. Jarrett Allen might be a good option here for me. I think he's even we've got a bus candidate. I think people are a bit down on him, potentially erroneously. I think there's a reasonable chance that he gets traded. I think there's a reasonable chance that he gets traded during the season, and he could find himself back on a team like, he could find himself on one of many teams. Maybe the first three teams that came to mind all were inappropriate. I was thinking Brooklyn, Utah, or Charlotte, but they're all sorted at the big man position. Then I thought of Trailblazers, and they are also sorted at the big man position. But he could find himself on a team where he could actually be the starting center and get a lot of minutes. But even still, he's not. I think he's still going to block shots. He's still going to get decent run. He had a bit of a down season last year. I don't think it's going to be as bad as all that for Jarrett Allen this year. But let's see if I can get him at pick. What is it going to be? 67. I think that'd be a fine spot for 68. I think that'd be a fine spot for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, he can't go to a spot where his situation's way worse. Like similar to another center, when he comes off the board, we'll talk about, like, if he gets traded as well. I'll just say it's Capella, right? If Capella gets moved later on, I know there's talks of Mavs, etc., but now they want to see what they have with Lively, which is fine, which is good. But in terms of if these two guys get moved somewhere, they're still going to be starting centers. I don't see them going for a backup role to a team that trades for them for a backup role. So I'm with you on Jarrett Allen and then later potentially Clint Capella as well, as Jarrett Allen just gets taken by Jay. So obviously they're listening and they're happy to move accordingly.
Well, usually the live stream's 30 seconds behind. So yeah, it is quite possible that they are hearing what we're saying and then drafting accordingly. But I think more probably they're drafting the dudes that fit their builds and not paying too much attention to what we're saying, unless they're looking to be smartasses, which I'm not sensing that from these guys at the moment. Now that's putting me in a position that makes me uncomfortable. Which is pretty classic for these types of competitive drafts. Now, I've got someone in mind. I've got one guy. Okay, all right. So I think I'm going to have to take the plunge here and take Vuk. Vuk obviously has well outperformed this ADP in seasons past. He's not going to give me what I want in terms of blocks. But he is going to give me some field goal percentage. The other direction I could go in is I could just completely move away from field goal percentage and then take someone like an Anthony Simons here. Maybe a fraction too early to do that. Look at that. Gone from being bottom to being all the way up at the top. Basketball monster. All right. I think I'm going to take Vuk. I have taken Vuk, and then Simons goes off the board straight after. So they were the two guys I was deciding between. Happy with Vuk there. Not going to rewind the clock. That's sort of who I had in the front of my mind there. But that's interesting. I've gotten up the top of the projected standings with really poor rebounds versus the rest of the field. That's the summary versus drafted. What I really could have done there is lent into that and then gone with a hard rebound punt for the rest of this draft. But instead, I took Nikola Vucevic, and that's going to sort of take that option away from me. Brings my my rebounds back into a reasonable place. That's probably going to drop me down the board quite a lot, though. But, I sort of started off this mock talking about building a balanced team. And because I really haven't chosen a punt and embraced it, that's really where I am going to end up, I think, with a quite a well-balanced team. And what that means is going to need to get my blocks and my field goals up further. So I think I need to take another big man very soon. And meanwhile, while I do that, my assists and my threes are starting to drop off too. So blocks and field goal, or assists and threes with my next pick. I see you took Mark Williams with the 70th overall pick, mate. That's quite high for Marky. You were a bit afraid that he wasn't coming back to you, I imagine. Oh, and there goes a combo.
Yes, because I was looking at Vooch as well at that level. I'm fine with him. I may not go earlier on, and then that went, and then Simons went, who I was looking at as well. Allen again in that round went. So Biggs then I was faced with a similar decision that you had. Either I completely punt rebounds and then go for a different build, or I try to salvage it a little bit and build out a balanced team because I have that cushion in points right now. Like, I think I'm by far and beyond, maybe like second highest in terms of points projections at the moment. So that's where I lent into Mark Williams, and I feel like if he gets those 30 minutes, I think he can return top 60, top 65, so potentially can beat this. And now Kongu also goes again by Emma. Great pick there, which is someone I was hoping would come back to me, which obviously has not. And then Chris Paul there as well. Again, see the punt points build. Chris Paul is so good for that build. Like if she is indeed punting points, which looks like she is. So Chris Paul, I mean, easily could give you 7-8 assists. It's not going to surprise anyone with the steal and a half, and that is extremely valuable at that point. Oh, there goes an interesting one. What do you think of Scoot there?
Oh, Scoot just went off the board. Yeah, look, with Dame and with Dame out of town, with Drew now out of town, I think he can achieve that value, but his field goal is going to be a problem. So probably a bit high for me. But if I look at this team, you've got Embiid, Pirtle, and Kessler. So realistically, you can absorb that field goal percentage. And I can see he's got like big, and then big assist guys here, just the one wing. So that can work. Who are you thinking here with this pick?
I'm looking at Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson. All right.
Yeah, I think he has scope to get this where he's drafted and this value back, and maybe some more spots as well. In terms of scoring, in terms of threes, he does give you decent rebounds as well. So I'm okay with him at this stage. I was considering another big man at this point as well, but then I just ended up taking Johnson at this point.
All right, now I just realized I had things on my custom ranks, not on the BBM ranks. Assists and steals, some points. Maybe. All right. Let me know when I'm on the board here. All right, I'm going to pause for a second.
You are.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause for a second while I have a quick look. Not too long. All right. So who have we got on the board here? We have got, and this isn't fair to everyone else in the draft, but we are making this for a podcast and not for a competition. So I will take the liberty here and also explain what I'm doing. So you can see in this category, in this column, in this row here, this is sort of how I'm going versus all the let's say the top 165 players, the players that are likely to be drafted. So that's sort of how I'm going. But this is more important, this summary versus draft. This is how I'm going against everyone else in the draft room. So my rebounds are a bit down. My assists are a bit down. My steals are okay. My points are starting to drop off precipitously. They were really strong previously, but they've certainly sort of dropped back a bit now. So I really need to get like either points and assists and steals, or I need to go for rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. If I'm going to pursue this, I guess this punt strategy, this balance strategy, it might behoove me to get the rebounds, blocks, and steals. But the other thing I'm going to look at is Emma and Tropics, who are above me, and even you yourself, who are below me. How am I doing against you guys? It looks like assists is the area that I really need the most help with, and steals. It's going to put me in a better position against you guys. And they also, particularly assists, something that can be difficult to get later on in drafts. So I come down here, assists and steals, Marcus Smart, but he's not going to give me much in the way of points. Jeremy Grant's going to give me some points, but he's not going to give me any assists or steals, or not many. Maybe a Terry Rozier here could be interesting from a pure build perspective. Don't really love him this year. Probably more inclined to take a Miles Bridges around this point. I think there's significant upside in what he can do versus what's projected here. And then Austin Reeves is someone else that I believe is going to get me a decent amount of points and assists, while not hurting me overly in the other categories. So Reeves, we've got Miles Bridges. And then the other thing I like to do here is just flick over to Kyle's projections, have a look what he's doing. He's got Terry significantly higher than Josh does. That might be a bit too much to pass up. His field goal percentage should go up this year. All right. It's going to be Reeves. It's going to be Terry Rozier. Personally, let me find Terry here. Let me find where we got Reeves, Aussie Reeves. Let me have a look at my positions. I'm pretty good at all the positions. All right, I think I'm going to take Aussie here. Am I? Yeah, I am. All right.
Nice. I did have him in my consideration as well with Cam, and I feel like that's a great spot to get him. He's at what? You got him at about 78, 79. He could return 15 spots of value on that, and then if you bake in the time that we expect Davis and LeBron to miss, and then it's him and D'Angelo Russell, and then coming in, and then his usage goes up. So I think he beats this pretty comfortably. So, that's interesting, Morant.
Yeah, I've just paused it there, and just to ask if he intended that. I might just undo it and see if he just retakes him. We'll just see if he takes him again, and give it a few seconds, and then I'll explain why I thought that might be a mistake. So Ja Morant, I think would be totally fine value here ordinarily. Yep, he's taken him again. But the reason that I wouldn't particularly take him here in this format is because the finals are the 8th of January through until the end of January. And Ja's suspended for the first 25 games of the season, which is roughly going to be around the first 2.5 months or so. So that's going to take you basically all the way through to the end of December. So at best, what you're getting with Ja Morant in this format, in the World Cup format, is you've got someone to plug and play for the playoffs. So if you think that you can make to the playoffs with the squad that you've built, then taking Ja Morant here, stashing him in your IR could make a bit of sense. But this would put him down like on a per game basis, totally fine. But on a total games basis, because the season finishes so early, Ja Morant's going to be a massive like sort of hole in what you're doing. So who was that that took it? It was Whale. Let's see what Basketball Monster reckons. All right, yeah, Ja. Yeah, very, very, very detrimental to your build. Any thoughts there, or just concur across the board there, mate?
Yeah, I concur. I mean, if he was to get him like two rounds later, maybe, yeah, then it's worth it, but not as your I mean, not as your seventh player. But yeah, uh, that's how I would look at it as well. Just because he's only going to give you about 3 weeks of value, maybe 4 weeks of value, and you may not even be in a good spot because you got to eat those zeros until then.
All right, Terry's still on the board. Who else we got? Bridges, who I liked. Jabari's going to have a good season.
It'd be interesting to see where Derek White goes after the trade. Like,
yeah, people
I
are
know,
obviously spooked because, frankly, he would have gone by now.
yes, he would
Yeah,
have.
in most drafts, I bet he's going to go in the next few picks. I feel pretty good about that. I'm just getting a few people into my queue. Just so I can avoid having to pause the draft room while I crap on. All right, who else is interesting around this area? So tell me about the build of your team, mate. What's it looking like for you?
Yeah, I think I am short on rebounds and blocks. Everything else is about balanced, really good at threes. Free throws are good as well. Turnovers, I was disregarding them, but turns out that they're okay. That's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing these drafts, right? Like if you don't pay that much attention to turnovers, sometimes you'll still end up getting a team which is decent in turnovers because that's just the category. High usage players are going to have turnovers. I think I got to take a call at my next pick. Like, do I completely shun off rebounds and blocks, and then I have that one central eligible player, which is Mark Williams, and then I just go for small overall, or do I feel like there's some big value left, bigs value left at my point in the draft that I can still salvage some of that to make it balanced. So that'll be the decision point when I come up in 5 picks.
Yeah, and I can see that I've slipped below you on totals. So it looks like maybe rebounds and blocks for you going out the window here.
Yeah, sure. It could be depending on who's available. Oh, Keegan Murray. Well, what do you think of
very
Keegan
early.
at that spot?
And that's with Tyus Jones going to Jay directly before. So Jay's definitely going in a sort of non-consensual. That doesn't sound right. He's going in a way that is against the consensus of the sort of the broader community with a few of those picks there. What do you think about his squad so far?
Let's have a crack. I think, yeah. I mean, Keegan, yeah, potentially it is a few rounds, but in terms of Tyus Jones, it's interesting because I actually think that his brother has a better pathway to beating that value than Tyus does. Just given the situation that Trey is in as being predominantly the only guard on that roster. I mean, I know they can play Sohan and they can mix it up a little bit, but he's the number one. He's the point guard there, right? Versus with Tyus, I feel like Kuzma's playmaking chops came up last year as well. He's going to handle the ball some. Obviously, there's Poole there. There is Delon right there as well, in case people sort of forgot about him. So I feel like Trey could beat Tyus this year, but will be close. And I think in terms of overall for Jay, like the team that they're building, they're really strong in free throws, and they have all the assists that you wanted. Yeah, but in terms of how they fill out the rest of the squad would be interesting.
Well, I really needed a big guy there to bolster up my field goal percentage and put a bit more on my blocks. But in my last pick, I was tossing up between Austin Reeves and Terry Rozier. And Terry Rozier's made it around back to me, which is a bit of a serendipitous situation to be in, where the guy that you were choosing between in the last round turns out he's still available. I was looking really closely at Wendell Carter there as well, but I felt that Terry's combo of points, assists, and steals was a bit too good to give up there.
Awesome.
So I allowed that one to go through. So I've added Terry Rozier to my group, and now I'm sort of firmly in the middle there. With Emma is really dominating the draft here, isn't she?
She is. I mean, that is that punt points team, right? Like on Anunoby, so much value there with Chris Paul as well, as we were talking about earlier, or Kongu as well. Even if he's not traded, even if Capella's not traded, like it'll be interesting to see what she does here in a punt points build. Right now, I would have like she has to start looking at Ben Simmons at some point. I reckon Draymond at some point as well.
If she's taking Simo with this next pick, surely
she's taking Simmons. Let's see. Emma, are you going to take Simmons or Draymond?
Derek White's gone off the board with the 95th pick. Wow, that's 25 slots. He's dropped back. Oh, Robbie Williams on Portland. That could be interesting. Could be very interesting.
You think they're going to play him at the 4?
Eh?
No. Do you think they're going to play him at the 4?
No, I can't really see a combination of Williams and Ayton at all, honestly. Like I heard, I was listening to the Dunked On guys, Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue this morning, and they sort of hypothesized that maybe there could be some 2 big lineups, but I don't really see it. Although, it'll screw their spacing. But aside from that, look, I think it could work in small stints because, you'd be plugging up the key and the paint. But you'd have shooters all around them. So like Scoot, Simons, and quite likely Sharp as well. So could be interesting offensively. Yeah, I think it'd be an odd lineup, but I'm sure they'll get some minutes in there at some point. All right, Bridges goes off the board at 100. I like that. I think Miles could really outperform that. I think if you go back the season before last, he was top 10 guy down the stretch. So depending what he's done in the last year, aside going to court, he could really be interesting there. All right, you've taken Benny Simmons. I was going to do it if you didn't. And now I really need to think about...
I wanted Gafford. I was looking at Gafford. I was looking at Bridges as well. I know you and I both. I was looking at Bridges in the last round. So to get him at pick 100, I reckon it's good value even if he misses the first 10 games. Gafford, I feel like people are spooked at the moment because of his elbow injury. But if it's even the timeline is 4 weeks, right? That's the high end of the timeline. That's still only 1 week of the regular season that he's missing. And if you're able to get him at that 100 spot, he could easily deliver 20-30 spots of value there. So I like that pick as well. I do like Zach Collins as well, which big girl.
Yeah, I was literally about to take him. So that's just really thrown a spanner in the works for me. That is not good, mate. Why did you do that? All right. Well, I was talking to Noah the other day, and I'm going to do something that I normally, which I've actually never done before, which is take Wiggins. But Noah on his podcast, pause. Sorry, guys. It's not who I meant to take there. Wiggins. So sorry to interrupt there. Noah on his podcast, his FBI podcast, Tank Me Later, sort of talked me into Wiggins a little bit the other day. Not, around this area. He was talking about it a little bit earlier in this, but he said that last year Wiggins sort of started off the season like he'd sort of had an epiphany about the way that he should be playing basketball. And what I mean by that is he said that he decided to focus on his defense and his rebounding, and he really came out the gate strong doing both of those things. And that then he had those 2 interruptions to the season, an injury, and then some personal issues, and that sort of got him off track. But he was sort of talking about how he sort of expected Wiggins to sort of re-find that mentality coming into this season. And with his stat set, my free throw percentage is really super duper strong, so I can absorb his crappy free throws. And he's going to give me points, which I desperately need, boards, which I desperately need, and some defensive stats, which I desperately need. So that's a bit of a pick for what I needed on the team, rather than necessarily a player that I'm overly in love with. As Jalen Green goes off the board there at 107, love that. How about you, mate?
Yeah, and Jalen Green, right? We spoke about scoring and that being a little difficult to find later on in the draft. And this is a guy who, if he averages 24 points or 25 even, right? Even with Van Fleet there, it wouldn't surprise anyone, right? It's the question with him is always what else is he doing, right? How much of his percentages can take a jump? And we see this, right, with guards in their early years, second, third, fourth years. They do have a tendency to pick up their percentages. Look at Darius Garland from years back. His rookie year, his percentages were not great. Then he picked them up, right? We saw Anthony Edwards as well improve his percentages last year. So if Jalen Green improves his percentages this year and potentially maybe a little bit of secondary playmaking as well on that starting lineup after Van Fleet, he could return this value. So I do like that pick that Booker is taken. And with you on Wiggins as well, like Noah sort of convinced me a little bit on that side as well, that last year was potentially where we're looking at Wiggins, like he could go up from there, especially now with the news that Draymond's going to be out as well for the first, I think, 4 to 6 weeks. So the first few weeks you get a potential bump there as well. And their forward depth is actually not that great. It's got Kuminga at the back, but it's not that deep on forwards as well. So yeah, I like that Wiggins pick.
Right. I was just looking at Nurkic. He's gone off the board. Starting center in Phoenix. I think it's fine to take him here at 110. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's more of a sort of like a time split with Eubanks. And I'm not really expecting him to be healthy, like fully healthy for the whole season. I think D'Angelo Russell there is a nice pick. Followed by Steven Adams, slightly high for me for Adams. I think you could have got him a round or 2 later, but I guess you're picking by the turn. Walter there, you needed some boards. So Steve-O's probably fine around there. Tobias, not going to give you a lot of upside, but at 112, totally cool. We've got a bit of a question here from Clarence. Anthony Simons, he's getting the keys this year, right?
So there's talks of Jake Fisher's podcast came out, and I tweeted about this as well. There's talks that they're looking at giving, like he's going to be the first option there, along with, I think Jeremy Grant's going to be there as well. So could he average like 24, 25 points? It is just like I was talking about with Jalen Green. It's entirely in the realms of possibility. But one of the key elements to keep in mind is that Scoot is still there as a primary ball handler. So I don't know how much his assists are going to come up to the levels that they were with no Dame. But in terms of from a scoring standpoint, from a three standpoint, from a free throw percentage standpoint, yes, he is going to deliver some value and could easily have a top 50 finish, top 55 finish in 8-cat.
All right, this is where I normally go for upside flyers, but I am absolutely in need of big man stats here, like desperately. My team could be really, really good here if I could have some quality big man stats. I've left my run on the big men too late. They all went very, very early in this draft. So I'm not going to take Valanciunas was the guy that I was sort of eyeballing. Not going to take him because he's obviously off the board. I'm not going to take a big man at all because I know Shaden Sharp isn't coming back to me if I don't take him here. And I really think he's going to smash this ADP. Absolutely annihilate it is my guess. You
had to do it, didn't you? He was top of my queue. I was hoping that I get him. Okay. Now we have to reset a little bit.
I'm so shattered.
I really did want him. All right. Now I think I got to have a crack now at one of the Thompsons, man. That's what I'm thinking. Right?
Which one are you going for? You
Like I think
thinking?
Osar has a just given again, keeping in mind the league settings for this is until January. I think until January, Asar Thompson probably delivers more value. Maybe after that is when they realize that a man has to play 30 minutes somehow, and then he delivers value. So for just keeping in mind the league settings, I would go Asar. Maybe in a full year setting, then I would potentially go a man who just goes the next pick, which is fine. But they're both quite close for me.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I was hiding Asar on my queue down here. He was going to be my next pick.
You were hiding sharp as well.
Yeah, I definitely was. Something else I want to call out here is, I really did want Asar. So I sniped you, you sniped me. Paul Reed. I actually went on a podcast with Josh Lloyd this morning. That'll be coming out tomorrow. We talked about Paul Reed. I called him out for having Paul Reed too high in his rankings. Had him at around the 103, 104 mark. And in the end, he agreed that was too high. So that was an interesting conversation. You guys should tune in for that when that comes out tomorrow as I get ready to determine my next pick. What I really don't want to do here is take Trey Murphy, because as much as I think he's a quality pick in this zone, in this particular format, I would not advise taking him. Maybe with your last pick to stash in your IR, because that's just the equivalent of someone on the wire anyway. But yeah, in a nutshell, I'd steer clear of taking him just because he's going to be out. They've sort of got it projected as coming back toward the end of November, but we all know that could push later. And if he's coming back mid-December and you're taking him here, I think you're sort of leaving a hole in your roster that you might not be able to fill off the wire. All right, there goes PJ. I purposely took him out of my queue so people would not do that, but they've done it anyway, leaving me with not a lot of options for big man stats here, which is frankly irritating.
There is one which I can obviously talk about because I'm picking before you. Like there is, if you really want to take a crack, Christian Wood's hanging around.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. I did catch my eye there. Don't love him as a player.
I don't either, man. But but Davis, we assume Davis will miss a little bit of time, right? At the very least. So yeah, I'm considering him, but then I also wouldn't mind some points at this stage just to. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Mathurin.
I'm bloody punting rebounds at this point. And field goal. So really should get my blocks up. And you know what? My turnovers are actually pretty good. Made a hash of this. Am I on the clock yet? Yes. All right. Obi Toppin goes. All right. What am I going to do here? All right. Got Josh Richardson up the top of the projections. When I turn on the punt rebounds, he goes up even higher. Herb Jones. He's not going to give me any points. Norm. Tybal. What do I really need the most? Rebounds and blocks. Where's some blocks? Pat Williams. Whoops. Going to undo that one, guys. Sorry. As I talk about letting it time out and taking Trey, I just did that to myself. So that's undone that. Now, where did I say? Williams, Patrick. All right. Who else we got? We got who else is going to give me some blocks here? We got Patty Williams. We got Jaden McDaniels. Really need someone who's going to give me some decent numbers with some points. None of those characters left on the board there. All right. Let's go with maybe All right, let's leave it at Pat Williams. That'll do. We'll see if Herb gets back around to me. Now that I've said that, he won't. But yeah, of course not. Here he goes. The next pick. All right.
I was looking at Patrick Williams as well at my pick. I feel like he has a chance of beating this number quite comfortably, maybe even by 20 spots and sneaking into the top 100 if he can just get to maybe like instead of one block, like 1.2 blocks. We know how much of a difference a little amount like that can make in overall rankings as well. So yeah, I love that pick.
Yeah, I don't love it, honestly. And there goes Josh Hart, who would have been interesting for me. No, I don't love it there. I've had Pat Williams in different formats, more or less, since the start of the season. Since he was drafted, I should say. It's been a letdown every year. I know he's still young. He was the youngest rookie in his draft class. I think he'd only just turned 18 when he got drafted. So he's still young. He's just the same age as a lot of the guys coming in this rookie class. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if him and the Thompson twins are essentially the same age. But I don't love it there because he's sort of burnt. I watch his games and he's very passive, and he just doesn't look like he's getting it together to me, to be honest. Like, I know he's got all the attributes that make him a good prospect, and he's sort of, he's got all of those factors going for him that suggest that he could pop. I just don't really see it, honestly.
Yeah, but again, at that pick, right, your risk is baked in. Like, you could chuck him out if he doesn't, if from your team, if he doesn't do well in the first 2-3 weeks, and you can play the wire, right? So.
Oh, true. But with a pick like that, it's like the way I sort of view it is it's more of so pick like 11, 12, it's sort of like you're taking them to hold them for a bit longer, right? So they're upside flyers, but they're the type of guy, like, for instance, that's where I was taking Jalen Williams last year with pick maybe 12.
Wow, that's a good
early,
pick.
Right? But he just had all the right setting to be able to kind of flourish in OKC. But, there was numerous times within those first 2 months of the season, November, December, where it was like, do I drop him? A couple of leagues I dropped him, picked him back up. But that's sort of what I'm looking at in those 11 and 12. And I don't know, you can't really, in this format where the finals are starting in January, afford to sort of take that approach. So I guess you're right. Taking these last 4 picks, you pretty much expect to cycle them all through your roster. And I guess that's the danger of sort of relying on these projections too much, is that you try and make up for lost ground rather than taking the upside swings. And as I look at my team, absolutely hemorrhaging field goal percentage and rebounds. But actually, a couple of these teams above me, I'm still beating when it comes to field goals. Emma's lost her top spot to Booker. So that's interesting. What are you thinking as we come up here to our next picks?
Yeah, and what you mentioned right now about standings, right? If you're using any tool, whether it's Monster or any other tool that tracks drafts, right, it does tend to skew your projections in terms of players that are initially projected to do well, right? And it sometimes discourages us from looking at those flyer picks towards the last rounds because those players are not projected to be high. So that's always something to keep in mind, right? If you're picking up those flyers in the last 2 rounds, if you're picking up, let's say, Jarris Walker, for example, if he goes off the board, right, you think he can win the job off right from top end, then that's fine because that's a flyer, right? And that's something to keep in mind when looking at these draft trackers. For me, at the moment, yeah, like Keontae George, for example, right, that is a pick which may not look the best in standings, but it's actually a good flyer pick at this stage if he wins that job outright and gets 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, I've got the most boring guy at the top of my queue, who I'm definitely not taking, but who I desperately need for my team, Ivica Zubac. I think I am going to go Schroeder here, though, And the rationale there is, I mean, he's the starting point guard in Toronto. He's going to get assists. He's perpetually underrated, tends to outperform where the analysts have him year on year. I think he does it again this season. And coming off the back of, I think he was the MVP of the actual World Cup, I think he's a fitting addition to my squad here. All right, there goes Zubac with the next pick. I feel like people are trolling me here, taking the guys that are in my queue like directly before me, but I know they're not, but it does feel that way when it happens. All right, your deep concentration. You took Josh Richardson. You want to walk me through that one?
I was just looking at it, right? Even though I did get a few big men for rebounds and blocks, I'm still quite weak in that. Like not nearly, I think not even middle of the table, like potentially like back end of the table on that. So just leaning into not considering those right now, then obviously Richardson, as you were mentioning in the last round, he pops up a lot if you're punting rebounds and punting blocks. So at pick 140, I feel like 141, that's fine. If he gets the starting job, which I assume he does, then he'll give this value, maybe like 20 spots on this on top if he really can make that role his own. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I was looking at Keldon as well at that spot, just because again, you know, that kind of scoring, even if he's in a 6-man role, it's good to have.
Yeah, well, there's 2-point specialists that have come off the board back to back, Keldon and Sexton. Where's Sohan? Is he gone? He has. All right, there you go.
He has to Booker T. Booker underscore 23.
These guys they are taking or they have taken a lot of the sort of more interesting young guys that I like to take around this area. And that has meant that I need to start considering pivoting and going in the opposite direction there, because the value might not necessarily be with the youngsters.
Yes, that does happen sometimes. You just got to know your league, right? You got to know like other people in your league, not this one in particular, but anyone who's drafting. Like you got to know like are the people going to jump for upside and pick players, or are they going to take those safer guys first so that it leaves you upside at the end?
Ooh, back to second here. That's Kyle's projections. What's Josh got me at?
Ooh, Derek Lively. Well done, Emma.
Yeah, damn. He might be starting, huh?
You're going to find out next week.
She knows I need blocks. I
like that pick a lot. Mike Conley was also hanging around here. Nothing exciting about him, but he potentially beats this by 20 spots as well. As I come up to my pick, I was looking at Aaron Gordon. I was looking at Mike Conley, but they're gone. So now
they both went?
Yes.
Oh.
So now I need to pivot my thinking to I mean, I don't love this pick, but feel like
the guy in my queue.
Who is it?
Let's see who you take here. I bet you it is.
All right, I'm done.
Kyle Anderson? No. Well, that's bold. You expecting him to be better than he was last season? Watch Big Girls Don't Cry. Watch him here just troll me and take Ando. Actually, he hasn't trolled me at all. He took Zach Collins when I wanted him. I didn't have him on my board. He took Zubac directly after me. No, totally reasonable. He's not trolling me at all. Tell me about Karras. Why Karras?
The guard depth on that team is quite thin. I think he still gets 30 minutes off the bench as a 6-man, 29 minutes off the bench, and in a punt rebounds and punt blocks build that my team is leaning into at the moment, he'll give you points. His percentages are his percentages, but I have a cushion there in my free throws and field goals to be okay with that. So for that points, for those assists, for those threes, and potentially maybe he gives you 0.9 steals a game, 1 steal a game. For those reasons, I feel like he makes sense. And again, it's the second last pick, so I could always cycle him through.
Somehow Nikola Vucevic. Okay, yeah, I see why. Yeah, Vuk. It's like my worst ranked player when I factor in the categories I'm basically punting here. I'm going to take Kyle Anderson here. I hate it as a pick in this range, but he does bring me the assists and the steals and a few blocks, and that's what I sort of desperately need, that stat set there. So that's who I've got there. I assume that was auto drafted onto my team. Yes, I was just looking very closely at Tybal there. He's gone off the board next. Rashawn Holmes comeback season. Who do you think has a better season, Lively or Holmes? I know who you're going to say.
Lively. It's quite.
Yeah.
I mean, it just. I was big on Holmes years back, right, when he was putting up those top 50, top 60 numbers in Sacramento. I just don't know how he fits into their plans. Let's see what happens in the preseason. I know they're playing Minnesota next week on Friday, I reckon, or Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see what Jason Kidd puts out there. He's talked about Prosper as well as Lively as starters. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust the word that comes out of Jason Kidd's mouth myself. All right, I'm in second here, according to these rankings. I'm losing by 4-5 rebounds. Okay. Steals are the swing factor for me here. So anything with steals and reasonable points, that's why Tybal would have been a good option for me. Brooksy. Walter's taken Brooksy. I actually like that pick at 13. I think we could see a bit of a new attitude, Brooks, this season. Maybe a bit humbled through because of the sort of the whole experience that he's kind of gone through over the offs. I mean, when Memphis said they're absolutely not going to take him under any circumstances, I think that would have been quite humbling for him. And then he obviously had the redemption. Absolutely. I mean, for him, how good would you feel getting that $80 million contract and then having the 40-point game in the World Cup versus United States? Like, I don't know whether that humility that I was just talking about is just completely evaporated after those two things, or it sort of stayed there, and that humility was the reason for those two. Well, not the reason for both the contract, but the reason for the great performance in the World Cup. I just think with a change of scenery, he could be a bit more disciplined, could know his place a bit more. I think with a strong coach, which I obviously do have there in Houston, we could see a bit more of a disciplined Brooks who doesn't think he's the guy that needs to take all the shots on the team. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm fine with him at that spot. No worries at all, right? And if he can rein it in, he could give you value at that spot. What's interesting, though, I'm keen to hear what you think. For Brooks, the pick, Lebat, if I'm pronouncing their name right, followed it up with James Wiseman. Now, that is it's something I haven't really seen, even in the last round of drafts, because there's still a lot of flyer people available, like Jarvis Walker. I'm looking at him. Potentially Javon Carter's available, Naz Reid, Isaiah Stewart. There's a lot. What do you think of that pick, Wiseman?
I definitely see the logic there, but I don't like the pick because I think James Wiseman draws a short straw in Detroit. I know that he's a former overall number one pick. I know that he is a freak athlete. He does have some skill. I just don't think that with Duran there, with Stewart there, with Bagley there, that he's going to get any run. He's going to get basically no run. He's going to be a backup or a second backup. I think that they are going to. I think they're going to minimize him, and I think it's going to be more and more minimization as the season goes along. This is basically like a contract year for him as well. So he's he's extension eligible going into this year. I think that they might actually be motivated not to play him so much so that they can potentially retain him as a backup on a lower contract. I just don't see it. The front court's way too crowded, and that's the reason I don't take Duran either, or Stewart, or Bagley. Not that I would take Bagley anyway. Just flicking over to my pick, and then we'll get to your pick, which I don't mind. But So I've got sort of 2 or 3 late round flyers that I like to take. Suggsy's one of them. Another one's Malik Monk, who I think is going to have a better season than consensus. I went with Suggs because he brings me the steals, which is what I needed for my build. So that was an easy choice. And you took Javon Carter. Walk me through why you think he's going to have a better season than someone like Kobe White, who went with the second last pick of the draft.
I wanted Suggs, and that was taken away from me. But for Javon Carter,
you wanted the steals.
I did, and I feel like he has that upside, right? Like he could get a 32-minute role, and then if Gary Harris is shipped off, as he's in a contract. I think he's in a last year of his contract as well, so he could get shipped out. And then Suggs walks into a 30-minute role at the 2 guard, right, which is great, and we know he can give elite steals in the minutes that he plays. So I wanted him. The reason I took Javon was like I spoke about this in the pod with Noah a few days ago. That Chicago, there's too many point guards there. I would not want to look at either one of them. I don't want to look at a Caruso. I don't want to look at a Javon really, or a Kobe White or a Dusumnu, right? But in terms of who I think is the best place to win that number one, the point guard role is Javon Carter, because the way they brought him in and the money they've paid him. So I'm happy to take a crack at it to see first few weeks of the season. Can he win that job? Can he get 30 minutes? If he does, he'll give me assists and steals. Cool. If he doesn't, he's gone.
Yeah. So anyway, you've obviously made the right pick there, because in that I was sitting up at second and you were sitting at around 5th, according to Josh's projections. And then after that last round, that script has flipped around. I am now at 5th and you are at second. So interesting to consider what it is about Carter versus Suggs that has caused that flip. Let's see how close we are on some of these statistics here. When I look at how I would track against you, slightly behind in points, further behind in rebounds and threes. And then you've got me quite handily on assists. So very, very interesting. It must be a case of points. What's Javon projected at scoring in terms of points this season? Don't know if you can see it.
I don't think it's going to be more. I think Suggs it's like 11 points.
11 points. Interesting. Amazing how some stuff at the edges can really make all the difference. Let's have a quick look at these teams, and I'll just quickly roll through them one by one. So I think Emma really had a strong draft here. Very strong punt points build. She made sure she loaded up on her assists and steals. But her threes sort of lagged behind a bit versus where she'd want them. And as always happens on some of those builds, really sort of missing out on rebounds and blocks there. So maybe one less point guard, one more big man would have been really useful for her. I think if I'm rolling through her picks, I really like Drew at 49. I know some analysts are cautioning against taking him inside the first 4 rounds. And I know that's technically the 5th round. But, I just see more of the same from him on the Celtics. I know that he's got other quality players around him, Tatum, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, who are all going to demand the ball. But he's not a high usage player. I think he'll make it up in other areas. He might get you more steals. He might get you he'll get you good field goal percentage. I don't mind that pick there. Also think Towns at 25 is really strong. I know that he's projected lower than that, but I sort of sense a bounce back for him. Moving on to and then the rest of the draft, I think we said Lively. What do you think of Alej Farefa's team? Give me a couple of picks of his that you liked and a few that you didn't.
Yeah, I think Cunningham in round 2, that's obviously something that's been trending upwards as we've been in drafting. We're starting drafting season, and I feel like his ADP will come in, and it'll be around this towards when we actually draft for money leagues. I do like him getting Kessler in round 5 as well. I was never a fan of Kessler going in the top 20, top 25, but at where Allegro got Kessler, that is good value. And in terms of for the final roundish picks, like yeah, Derek White fell as well, like to round 8, almost towards the end of round 8, which yesterday this would not be happening. And I feel, given how thin the Boston rotation is, there's only 6 guys who are potentially playing, or maybe 7. He will still get about 30 minutes, and he'll be around this value. So I feel like that's good as well. In terms of last round flyers, yeah, Kobe White, another one of those Chicago guards. Let's see if he wins the job outright. Aaron Gordon, coming back to our Denver topic on how when you took Jamal Murray, I feel like he's going to have to do a lot more this year as well. So that's fine as well.
We might have to burn through these a bit faster, but
Yep.
I did love those Bridges and the White pick from Algaref. The Lack Bear. Let me have a look. Bridges there with the one playoff game is a bit rough. Probably would have let him fall down a bit. Gafford in the 9th round is pretty strong. I love that SL Thompson pick because obviously I was going to take him there too. Even though it's the 10th round and typically a bit early for those flyers, I did like that. Obviously, I'll just run through your team. The Bain pick I think is super strong. You knew that I was going to take him, and you went ahead and took him anyway. I thought it was maybe a bit high for Mark Williams, but on second thought, at that point in the draft, not too bad. And Cam Johnson there is strong. Getting Ben Simmons so late, he's been going as early as the 70s in some of these mocks, some of the draft-only leagues. Pretty good. They're probably my faves from you. Give me a couple of players here on the Big Girls Don't Kawhi team. Tell me which of his picks you like the most and or the least.
Zach Collins, I think round 9, definitely. I like that. Yeah. I like the flyer on Obi Toppin as well. See if that works out. I like these two in particular. I think Zubac and all those are sort of stock standard late round. We know what we're getting with those people, but these 2 picks I like a lot.
For me, it's Anthony Simons in the 6th round there. I think that's pretty strong. I think he could outperform that significantly, and I think he's still underrated as we go into the season. And now that the roster's sort of cleared out for him, wow, he could really have a big season. Which of my picks did you like or hate? Give me a couple.
You took a few guys from me, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was looking at Jamal Murray, I was looking at Vooch, I was looking at Austin Reeves. Therefore, I love all these 3 picks. Towards the end of the rounds, I was looking at Shaden Sharp. Love that pick as well. There, he has potential to beat this. I know, and I know you're not a big fan of the Patrick Williams pick just because of your experience with him. But at that stage in round 11, I feel like that is a great pick. Suggs as well towards the end part of it. I guess the only one which is interesting is like Jackson in round 2, but again, you got him towards the end of round 2, so I'm fine with that. And his blocks, as well as like he's not hurting you in free throw percentage, which is the key element to watch when you're getting these big block guys. Like Kessler kills your free throw percentage. He doesn't kill it because he doesn't take that many, but he's not good at it. Whereas Jackson is. So
like the format, right? Ja Morant's out for basically
25 games.
Yeah, the whole of the like this phase 1. So Jackson's going to get a bit more run. So I actually like him in this format quite a bit. Whale 529. Kawhi a bit early versus where he's been going in the draft onlys, but totally fine there. It's definitely the Ja Morant pick that sticks out here. Basically, no point in taking him unless you've got like a super, super strong. You're like leaps and bounds ahead of your competitors, which I don't think Whale is. So I think Ja was just a bit of a waste there, and he would have figured up higher on the projections should he not have taken him. But I do like this Peyton Watson pick. I do like that pick. Denver, very, very thin this season. Not a lot of depth. And I think Peyton's going to be playing every night, and he's got a good fantasy profile. Moving on to Tropics. Give me a couple of players here that you like, where they were picked. Or you didn't.
Poole and Claxton. I love those 2 picks. I was looking at Poole in that round as well. Feel like he can beat this number. And Claxton, this is probably one of the latest. I spoke about that earlier as well in the draft. Like him a lot. Another one which I do. I mean, Rashawn Holmes. Again, I don't want to fall too much because it's second last pick, but I don't potentially see that working out. But it might. Jeremy Grant in that round 7, I like that a lot as well because he's going to get his shots up.
Yeah, for me, Sadiq Bey in the 9th round was too early, but I agree with everything you said. And Paul Reed, I think it's still a fraction high, but it's right on the borderline of where I'd start considering him. I'd rather get him where I was getting him early in the year, a month or two ago, around 12, 13, but he's not falling that far. So if you want him, that's where you're going to have to grab him. Now, look, moving forward to Jay, having a quick skim through here. Really like the DeRozan in the 5th round there. I mean, that's super strong. We're talking pick 57 there for DeRozan. That's just insane value. But this Keegan Murray pick, I think that's a fraction high in the 8th round there. And Tyus Jones in the 7th round. I know he's a starting point guard at Washington, but he actually will get you a lot of assists. I just think you could have waited a round or two for that and taken him there. Moving into the last 3 teams, tell me what you liked or you didn't like about Booker's picks. I can see something there that really jumps off the page at me.
For me, I think Maxey in round 6. That is tremendous
good, yeah.
there. That is great value there. I think his some of his late round picks I loved as well, like Eason and Sohan. These are good upside picks, and he's got them outside his starting lineup. So he's got them outside pick 10, like 11 and 12. So I do like those as well.
I like Jalen Green
that's
round 9. That was pick 107 for Jalen Green on the Rockets. I mean, he's going to get you 23, 24, 25 points a night. You just don't get points contributions like that in the 9th round. So that was really strong. I probably should have taken him instead of Wiggins, but you live and you learn. Walter, aka Lebat. We discussed Wiseman in the last round has been a bit of a waste, but who cares? It's the last round. Few rookie, younger players up the top of the board here: Edwards, Barnes, and Banchero. Anything there that really jumps off the page at you as something to commend or to shit all over?
I think I like Chris. I mean, we've talked about Wiseman. I like Christian Wood in round 12. I mean, that's a good flyer with potential to jump up 40 spots, 50 spots, even if Davis was to miss games and still provide you standard league value. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. It's pretty solid team actually, as you look at up and down. And last one is B Pink. What do you reckon? It's my turn to go. All right, so he's got Trey Murphy in round 12. I assume that was intentional. I missed that when I must have been looking at Basketball Monster. As we discussed, probably not going to contribute much in phase 1. But there is a chance that he sort of comes back mid-November, in which case you stash him on your IR for 4 weeks and you get maybe a top 70, 80 guy, maybe top 100 guy when he returns, although he probably would ease into it a bit. I'm not a big Jaden McDaniels fan. Even in the later rounds, round 11 I feel is a little bit too high. I think Klay Thompson's stars on the wane. But I do like these other picks. I think taking Booker at 13 was really bold, but I like it. I think he's going to have a big season. What's your thoughts to wrap up on B Pink's roster there?
Yeah, I think they really the 5th to 7th round picks in particular I really like Franz Wagner, Tyler Hero there, and Markelle Fultz. Those 3 middle round, the solid players that he's taken. I feel like just towards the end of the draft, this is again just in people's styles, right? Getting McDaniels, Kevin Huerter, and Al Horford, we know what they're gonna give, but there isn't much upside in them versus what we've seen with other people, who've got Christian Wood, or for example Booker, who's got Eason and Sohan. I feel like these are the picks that make a difference in what would be a league winner versus these safer-ish picks, right? Especially in a league of this size. That's something to keep in mind. Like how you were mentioning earlier, how you got Jalen Williams really late last year. Those are the type of moves that potentially can win leagues. So that's just one point to note in terms of last round flyers and the way to think about them.
Absolutely, mate. So anyway, I got to thank you for coming on today, Karan. It's been a pleasure talking to you for this past 2 hours. Anybody that's still in the room, still watching us live, I can see there's 24 people watching us live. Well done for keeping online all the way through this discussion. Some things to sign off with. Our redraft leagues are open in a Discord server. You can join our Discord server from our Twitter handles. My Twitter handle is @HiddenUpside. Karan's Twitter handle is @StylesOfBeyond with 2 Ds at the end, @StylesOfBeyond with 2 Ds. You can also join our Discord via our FBI Twitter handle @FBIbasketball.com. We've got head-to-head and roto leagues available, $20 leagues, $50 leagues, $100 leagues. There's room in all of them. There's an auction. There's a deeper league that you can join, 16 teams that still has a few spots left. There'll be more leagues dropped throughout this week. We might do another World Cup show in the next few days. Don't hold us to that. We'll see how this video goes and see what the feedback is. Check out our website, fbibasketball.com, and potentially most importantly at all, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really does help us out. So from me, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us for this mock draft. Hopefully it's helped all you budding World Cup draftees with your strategies. I know it's clarified a few things for me. So signing off for now. Take it easy.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.